Good morning. I'm Cindy Haas, and I am from Region 2, so way north, California. And what was the other thing? Oh, rural. I am representing rural, and I work for the after school department in Tehama County.
Right, Lupian from Southern California, San Diego, Los Angeles area, and representing large middle schools.
Julie Brooks from Los Angeles area, representing large elementary schools.
Tony Brown, Los Angeles, heart of Los Angeles, representing small elementary schools and after school programs.
I'm sorry, is that my turn now on Zoom? Good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Ortiz. I am in the Central Coast, representing small rural middle schools.
Good morning. I'm Olivia Kernan from the Humboldt County Office of Education in Humboldt County, representing rural schools.
Chris Meza from the Napa County Office of Education, representing urban Region 4.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Funk, Director of the Expanded Learning Division, California Department of Ed. Turn it to Fred Bugs.
Fred Bugs, Expanded Learning Division, representing the EPCs.
What's an EPC?
Education Program Consultants.
Thank you very much.
Will do. To your left of your folder, you have our Expanded Learning Division updates, which will be shared out during the meeting. And you also have a notepad for you to take notes on your right-hand side. Just in case you have a motion, we just want to make sure we get that written out the same way in which you want it relayed into the notes. So if you just use that for that purpose, we appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2025 minutes.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to try it again. Thank you. Oh, the chairman mute. I missed that. I muted myself. So I do want you to know that this is a proposal from the governor, so it will take a process and it will go through, which is why Olivia couldn't hear me when I asked her if she could vote. Thank you, Olivia. So those are the two updates I have. Legislation will start to be proposed, and then we'll follow the governor's proposal for a guaranteed tier 2 at $1,800. Any questions? Okay. Normally we would jump to the expanded learning division update, but I think that Jeff is here from California After School Network and is asked to come in early to do a quick presentation. So Jeff, I'm going to call you to the podium. So Jeff, if you can introduce yourself, that would be helpful.
Everybody, Jeff Davis, Executive Director, California After School Network. Let me apologize in advance because I know that we have a process and wanting to make sure that slides are accessible. I was not able to get in slides in the timeline, so I'm just going to sort of share a brief verbal update, if you don't mind. Many of you know, you've sort of heard me talk about that the California After School Network is doing some work in the realm of workforce development. So I wanted to sort of just share with you just a couple of updates that I think are interesting and for your consideration. One is that as part of our sort of work in workforce development, we have been exploring the role of, well, first I'll say, and when we think about workforce development in the expanded learning field, the way that we're thinking of it is that it's important to sort of look at our pathways into the field. It's important to think of pathways within the field, and then it's also important to think of pathways through the field. Did my mic just go out, or can you still hear the mic? Okay, all right.
Olivia is nodding her head virtually, so she can still hear you, Jeff.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Something shifted. Sorry about that. So we think of it as into, within, and through the field. But one of the things that we have done is that we have submitted apprenticeship standards to the Division of Apprenticeship Standards of California, and we've been part of a couple of planning grants in regards to apprenticeship, and we're going to be applying at the end of this month and the beginning of next month for some implementation grants. So we'll actually be able to start some apprentices on their path in the expanded learning field in 3 communities of California, beginning in July, if awarded. But I think that one of the things that's really kind of interesting to consider in this is that the standards, when you submit them, they talk about the knowledge, skills, and competencies needed for a frontline staff and for a site coordinator. Those are the 2 positions that we have submitted standards for. And in many of our conversations in that apprenticeship world, Michael will be familiar with a colleague of his in the Department of Ed. Her name is Allison Frenzel. She does a lot of work in the apprenticeship workforce development space, but also in the career tech ed space. So it's been interesting in conversations with her as we're starting to look at a career tech ed pathway into education. She's sort of understanding that these knowledge, skills, and competencies exist related to expanded learning, and also looking at, well, what would that pathway actually look like, right? So her sort of thinking right now, or at least something that she's mentioned with me, is that it would be kind of an important infrastructure to lean on. And these knowledge, skills, and competencies, I don't even see how you think about a high school career tech ed pathway into teaching without building on what you have here in expanded learning. So as we continue to think about this expanded learning platform, right, and as we continue to consider an ecosystem plan for expanded learning. And one of the things that is part of our contract with the Department of Ed is to be able to have some of these kinds of external meetings to inform folks. So just wanted to share that one sort of brief update that we have joined an ad hoc committee convened by the Career Tech Ed folks at CDE, along with one of Michael's staff, Daryl Parsons. And we're really looking at that CTE pathway into teaching, and how we can build on a lot of the work, right, that would have came, Sandy from this committee first, and then the Workforce Strategy Committee, and then the Workforce Implementation Committee of Strategic Plan 2.0, and just sort of like drawing that through line that now we're at the expanded learning field is at the table for those CTE pathways into the role of teaching. I'll be happy to provide more updates on the apprenticeship work, crossing our fingers should we be awarded. But I'll
Can I ask a couple
pause
questions?
there. Yeah,
On the
please.
apprenticeship program, is it a paid apprenticeship for the young people?
The definition of an apprenticeship is that it is an earn and learn model. So there's a lot of incentive for programs to participate in such a model because they're going to be hiring and paying those individuals anyway. There are certain rates, right? Like they want to make sure that that the rates are consistent with minimum wage and the local community, right? Like so, there are some guidelines that the Division of Apprenticeship Standards provides around making sure that those wages are sort of like adequate and livable. But yes, it is an earn and learn model, and participation in an apprenticeship gets you free community college because part of that is that you're learning on the job. Part of that is that you're learning from experts in the field, like, for example, the California After School Network. And part of that is that you're learning through instruction in a community college. So through that, you get all the benefits of being a community college student as well in terms of the wraparound supports.
You mentioned that you've identified 3 communities. Those communities have already been selected in the application, I'm assuming?
These are 3 communities that have been participating with us through what's called a California Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship Planning process over the past year. Yeah, and they include Calexico Unified, and Pro Youth, a community-based organization in Visalia and the surrounding area, and Bay Area Community Resources in the Greater Bay Area. We're looking at sort of like an urban, suburban, rural, also some community-based organizations, some local education agencies to sort of look at our first implementation, having some diversity of organizational types so that we could learn the most possible from the process.
And will it be a multi-year project or is it a 1-year funding source? And
yeah, well, I mean, so should we be awarded, there are 2 funding sources that we're seeking right now. So the California Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship is a 2-year because we've been part of a planning grant. We've been invited to apply for an invitation-only proposal, but there will be future competitive proposals that come out. And then the other one is the California Apprenticeship Initiative. The interesting thing about this is that the Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship funding comes out of the Division of Apprenticeship Services. The California Apprenticeship Initiative comes out of the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. Over the past year, part of our planning process has been really sort of understanding what is a quite fragmented workforce development funding landscape. I feel like I'm seeing your familiar smile, Sandy.
yeah, and I think, I mean, as you had mentioned before, this work would have come from, conversations here to the workforce, to the work development. How can this committee, this advisory support that work and support your application processes?
Yeah, I think that one thing would be to think about any voice that this committee has. I think that even and I'd be happy to work with Tiffany on something as well, or this committee on, what would it look like to have like a support letter that is shared with that ad hoc committee, that that this representative body of our field is supportive of this notion of stronger K-12 partnership and stronger partnership on the teacher pipeline, right? I think something that we've known for a long time is finally being recognized outside of our own echo chamber.
Well, I just think, Jeff, I mean, Michael and I and you have been here long enough that, just trying to get us a code in the Department of Labor so we can be recognized as a position, as a staff position, right, with the feds, and having had this conversation for, 20 plus years of how do we start early and grow our own. And so I think this is a great example of something this advisory has talked about when we talk about the rural areas, and Cindy talks about employment and trying to find that workforce. And I appreciate that you've picked such diverse 3 communities so that you can kind of figure out what works in each and how do you strengthen those, because you're going to find different problems in each. But I think this is a great way for us to tap into the younger population to say a paid apprenticeship, learn on the job, and get additional perks through community college. I think this committee, myself speaking, would love to support those efforts. We've been talking about it for a long time, and it's awesome to hear it's coming true. So members have other questions or other comments? Well, let us know how we can help.
I do. This is Diane. I don't know if you can see my hand on the screen.
I see it.
Okay. Hi, Jeff. What a great program. This is really well thought out. I'm excited to see that you figured out the 2 pathways for funding. Just a question about eligibility for youth and alternative education settings, and if you anticipate that there will be any barrier to access based on transportation, or if that's been thought out.
Yeah. Sure. The interesting thing was I had not really planned on speaking as much about the apprenticeship opportunities, but I understand there's a lot of excitement around it. Yes. So the interesting part about the California Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship in particular is that it is specifically for opportunity youth. And our approach has been to think about that it's almost as if that kind of funding opportunity was designed for our field, because we serve opportunity youth in our high school programs, and many of our staff would fall under the definition of opportunity youth. So, for some apprenticeship processes, it would be this additional really challenging outreach process to make sure that you could reach that audience. For us, it is not necessarily, we don't have that same challenge. However, not every single individual that we would engage in an apprenticeship process is going to fall under the definition of opportunity youth. So we think about how do we braid the California Apprenticeship Initiative with the Opportunity Youth Apprenticeship as, wait for it, one comprehensive apprenticeship program, so that an agency participating is not limited in terms of like who can be in the apprenticeship, but also would be serving those opportunity youth, which I would imagine would have a large overlap with the population that you were talking about. Most of the funding that is provided through these opportunities is meant for direct apprentice support. So part of that is going to look like, is it gas cards? Is it bus passes? But it's certainly laptops and hotspots, and then the community college also has food pantries and additional supports, because they would also be a community college student as a part of the apprenticeship. So yes, it's something called support for basic living expenses, because sometimes it is the human challenge of like, I want to be there, but my car broke down, or right, like, or I don't have childcare, or right. So a good percentage of the funding is set aside for the apprentices themselves. And then that funding would be utilized by the organizations that are supporting the apprentices on a more individualized basis, right? It's not going to be like, okay, well, we've determined that each of you gets a gas card. Well, what happens if you don't have a car? What's that gas card, right? So they're going to have to look at what is the individualized support that is needed by each apprentice and then use those resources to support their individual needs.
Thank you.
The last thing I'll share about this is that we plan to make those knowledge, skills, and competencies totally available to the field once they're approved by the state. The Division of Apprenticeship Standards is in a glut of an approval process, and ours have been with them for quite some time. But we also believe that we're going to be prioritized especially if funded, and our work is going to begin in July. So our hope is that, right, somewhere in that timeline, these would get approved, and then we could release these. They were all tied to the quality standards. So we're really starting to look at the quality work, not just as sort of a description of a steady state of quality, right, which is a way a lot of our assessment tools sort of look like, right? Does the program have this? Does the program have that? But this is something that we're beginning to sort of frame as the foundations for quality. And what would it look like if these knowledge, skills, and competencies were taken by agencies and they did a sort of analysis? Well, how does our professional development currently offered map to these knowledge, skills, and competencies? So our hope is to just make these freely available and allow organizations to utilize them to think about how they're building competency within their own agencies in order to be in alignment with the quality standards from a staff development perspective.
Thank you. Julie, you had a question?
Just a comment. I just also want to offer that a couple of us have been doing these programs for a couple of years. So feel free to lean on us, right? So in Los Angeles and also in Oakland, to make sure that you can utilize us to be able to learn from our experience as well as round out that geographic portfolio too. But I'm sure you already know that. But
yeah,
with these funding streams, yeah.
Thank you. Tony, go ahead.
Is this, and there is a connection here to the CTE pathway to teaching, is that right? And so my question, so then with that, is it broad enough to allow for someone to have these competencies to also be eligible for careers in social, broad, not just narrow social work, but, social service of some sort?
Well, I'm glad you asked. And Sandy, I swear, I did not mean to take this much agenda. However, yes, I mean, one of the things that we're really exploring is, and in fact, right, we're in conversations with Healthcare Access and Information, HCI, that is sort of rolling out the new workforce of certified wellness coaches. We see a lot of overlap with this workforce in the expanded learning workforce. And so they also have an apprenticeship that's in development and standards under review with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. So we're actually beginning a comparison of those competencies and a crosswalk to be able to clearly demonstrate that if this is the way that you're talking about competency and this is the way that we're talking about competency, look at the overlap. This is a way to make the argument that if you're a wellness coach on an apprenticeship pathway, why wouldn't you be placed in an expanded learning program? If you're on an education pathway and you need your practicum hours, why wouldn't you consider expanded learning programs in your local area? And then, right, so that could be then, if you think about an individual entering the workforce, you could start on an expanded learning apprenticeship. you could start on a wellness coach apprenticeship that could last up to 4 years if you take it through your bachelor's. That level of continuity of staff that are continuing to build their capacity to support social emotional wellness, right, is very, I think that's a win if we have somebody on a behavioral health pathway in the expanded learning field for 4 years. So yes, those are other pathways that we're exploring through our school-based mental health work.
Thank you, Jeff. That's awesome. Anything else to update?
Oh, I could update on a lot, but I will leave it there.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Always an honor and a pleasure. And thank you for the flexibility.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to turn it to the Expanded Learning Division announcement and updates. Michael, I think Josh is out today, so we're turning it to you.
And I am going to turn it to our two staff service manager ones, Emily and Kindred.
1 second while I fix my slideshow. Thank you for your patience. My name is Emily Romine. I am one of the supervisor ones at the Expanded Learning Division. One of the announcements we have for you today is all fiscal year 2025-2026 grant award notifications were emailed out to the field in December 2025. This includes after school education and safety, the Frontier Transportation Grant, the 21st Century Community Learning Centers Grant, and the Assets After School Safety and Enrichment for Teens Grant. For 21st Century Community Learning Centers Grant update, the one-time funding request for application generated 320 applications requesting $364,250,000 in funding. The intent to award was posted on December 12th, 2025. The cutoff for free and reduced price meal percentage was 91.11. And the final intent to award packet is in the process of being approved.
Emily, can you just, I know that there was requested for funding, but for 364,000. If I'm correct, the amount that you had available was significantly less than that?
Yes, the amount available is 145 million.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, moving on to our after-school education and safety updates. The ACES Universal Round 2, fiscal year 2025 to 26, RFA was released November 3rd, 2025, with the due date of December 3rd, 2025, and approximately $45 million was available. And for the ACES Round 2, we had a total of 145 applications and $112 million and some change in requested funding. There were 15 applications disqualified, and currently we are working on the funding determination packet.
Do you know what the most common disqualification was? Was there a trend or was it all over the map? I know that's something we've always asked about as to why people are disqualified. Was it lack of signatures? Was it didn't meet the minimum standards?
Yeah, it's a combination of lack of signatures, lack of not turning in the correct documents, stuff like that.
You would hope that they could get it right by now. There's a lot of technical assistance and a lot of repetitiveness. So it's just interesting that we've had 15 who still weren't able to submit everything properly.
And the ACES renewal, Cycle B, we sent out the e-blast on November 13th, and that was due January 9th of 2026. And then the ACES Universal RFA fiscal year 2026 to 27 was posted on January 13th of 2026 with a due date of February 24th, 2026.
Questions from members? Julie?
I just have a question around how many sites were actually funded through the supplemental. I saw the dollar amount. But
I don't recall at this time, but I can get that information for you.
thank you.
I think at this point, we're passing it over to Jen Taylor in the Region 3 team.
Before we jump to Jen and the Region 3 team, I just have a couple of other quick updates. Thank you, Emily and Kindred. I'd have to say that we didn't anticipate that many applications for the 21st Century one-time funding and also for the ACES Universal, given the amount of money that's going out into the field now for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. And it clearly demonstrates that there is still unmet need, which, it's great news that the governor put $62.4 million more dollars into ELOP. Quite frankly, I was a bit nonchalant about that because we've got $4.7 billion. But I was reminded that there are states that are still fighting an uphill battle to get $10 million, $20 million. And so I just want to remind myself and remind the advisory committee that the fight is never over. The advocacy must continue. And there's lots of unmet need. As Mr. Tony Brown and I were talking about before the meeting, there's a lot of youth that don't access school-based programs. And for the record, there still needs to be funding to find a way to support our most vulnerable youth who would tend not to stay in a school-based program. I've since learned last week that used to be that California was the only state with a state-funded program. There are now 29 states with state funding dedicated to publicly funded after-school programs. Some of them are school-based, some of them are not. That total amount of money nationally is now leaving out California, that total amount of money is about $600 million. And that is a significant increase than what the reality was pre-pandemic. But now we're at 5.7 billion. And I would say that it might be important for you to know this information I'm about to go over is on our website. This is the ELOP expenditure information for the 23-24 expenditure, 23-24 year, which is the latest information we have. Just as a reminder, LEAs have until June 30th of this year to spend down 24-25 funding and then report on it. So this 23-24 is the latest that we have. Again, the information on the expenditure report is on our website. What I'm about to read to you is not broken down, but this is some of our own internal analysis of the 1,608 LEAs. And as a reminder, The 1,608 LEAs could be a single charter, or it could be Los Angeles Unified School District. So that's somewhat of a large range. Of the 1,608, 1,380 reported spending 100%. 69 reported spending between 75% and 99%. 40 reported spending 25 to 49.9%. And 63 LEAs reported spending 0 to 24%. And as we look at analysis of this, just a cursory analysis, many of the districts that spent 0 to 24.9% were LEAs that received the minimum apportionment of 50,000 during that year. And of course, one of the things we advocated for, I have advocated for in every legislative hearing that I testified at, was that 50K was not sufficient to run a program. And if you've ever run a program, you know that to be true. So at least this year that we're in, the minimum went up to 100K. And I do know of LEAs that had declared their intent not to operate the program because they had the minimum of 50K, who reversed their decision once it was announced. It was bumped up to 100K. So it'll be interesting to see what that analysis is, but it's just interesting to hold the dramatic increase in the districts that reported spending 100%, and yet still see the request for more funding at those high levels. So I'll just pause there. If there's any questions before we turn to the Region 3 presentation, any other questions for the department?
Tony? Oh, sorry, Brad?
Thank you for the data, Michael. I was curious if there was any correlation data run comparing that ELOP 23-24 spent unspent analysis with the unspent funds ACES and 21st by region that was presented to us a month ago. Are we seeing that the same LEAs that aren't spending their ELOP money are the same schools and LEAs that are not spending their assets 21st century and ACES? Was any correlation data run there?
We have not done that correlation, but I can tell you again, anecdotally, the highest percentage of LEAs that did not spend ELOP do not have ACES and 21st century grants. Those districts that tend to have ACES and 21st century in assets, well, assets is a different category, right? Those that have ACES and 21st century elementary middle tend to spend a much higher percentage, if not all of their ELOP funding. Now, we still hold the challenge that the vision of LEAs running one comprehensive program where they have ACES or 21st century elementary middle and they have ELOP funding, and on the back end they're practicing separate accounting practices, those types of things, but on the front end families know one comprehensive program. That is still an uphill battle. We still have districts, well, we have this person running ACES and this person running ELOP. And that is not the vision.
And sometimes the two never speak. Diane, you had a question?
I do. Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down, Michael. I really appreciate that. I was curious about, I know there was some mention of frontier funding and some conversation around last time about frontier funding for transportation being underutilized. And I'm curious just about, representing small rural school areas. I know the increase in the $100,000 is a big benefit. but transportation is still a huge concern. And I'm curious to see if there's any way that this committee can advocate or move for the use of ACES transportation dollars for Frontier to be utilized for those ELOP sites as well, and if that might help with some of that, some of those folks that have ELOP only and not able to spend the entire amount of money.
Appreciate the question. I would have to say that Ed Code is super clear that the Frontier transportation funds are only available for those school sites that have an ACES grant and the school site meets the Frontier designation. Again, ELOP is an apportionment that goes to an LEA, and the LEA then determines if it's a large district or medium-sized district. They determine what sites get the money. ACES in 21st century are grants to school sites. And the Frontier designation is not per LEA, it is per a school site. I will give the committee an update that we have been working internally at CDE because we had some school sites that did not meet the conditions of a Frontier site, but they had in previous years. We revisited what information CDE uses to designate a school site as Frontier and discovered it's actually very complex. There are 3 or 4 different data sources they can look at to determine if it's a Frontier site, which Frontier site is 11 persons per square mile. There are census data. The school sites have their own, school districts have their own calculations. And we found that there are 3 or 4 different ways you can look at that. We have just recently worked with our data office to use the most generous interpretation set of data, and they're putting out a new list, and some school sites that have fallen off the Frontier eligible status are now back on. Those school sites that dropped off this year in spite of that are still going to get 3 more years of funding. We don't just cut somebody off on the first year. And we're also not issuing a public RFA for those school sites eligible for Frontier. We are in the process of communicating with every school site that has an ACES grant that is Frontier eligible to communicate with them to opt in without an application for the Frontier funding.
Michael, why did they drop out? What changed that? I mean, because we had a set number kind of consistently going forward. Did a calculation change?
No, it was more people moved into the area.
Okay. So they got the 12th person.
Yeah.
Somebody
had a baby.
So if they had an extra person, and so they still have 3 years, they just don't get walked away from and said, hey, you have one too many people, you got to go.
Correct.
They're still protected for 3 years. And I think the idea of not doing a open RFA, which I know we did multiple times because we just didn't get the response that we had hoped, but actually doing individual reach out and eligibility to opt in, brilliant idea, brilliant. I mean, because I know the department struggled with and I also know that the Frontiers were saying, I'm trying to run a program. I don't have time to be tracking what CDE is doing. I don't have time to be writing applications. I'm the bus driver. I'm the teacher. I'm also the principal. And on the third Wednesday, I'm the superintendent. So it's just, it's just so hard. So I think what a great idea. I don't know where that came from, but that's brilliant. And I really applaud the department of being flexible and responsive to the Frontier districts. He's looking at Emily and Kindred.
Well, I think Emily and Joshua Brady can be credited with that.
Well, Emily, thank you so much, because I know that the Frontier districts have really struggled in the past. Just the minimum grant was an issue. All those things were just such a hinder to pay staff and to have supplies and rent. So I think that's awesome that you guys have done that. Any other comments on that?
And Kindred, I'm sure you had a share of that too. So I just want to credit. It also reduces the burden on CDE staff. I just wanted all these different like the one-time 21st century funding, the amount of additional workload that puts on our fiscal analysts is significant. And the additional ACEs RFA that went out. So I just want to say that they're making this move to reach out to individual sites that are Frontier eligible is also an efficiency move within the department, as well as a service to the school sites themselves. And also, just as a reminder, those sites that are designated Frontier not only are eligible for the Frontier transportation, but they then have different requirements for both ELOP and ACES in 21st century in terms of hours of operation that they must keep open.
Well, I know, Michael, and you had mentioned when you opened about you were somewhat surprised at the response of the supplemental and the ACEs, and just having 3 times the amount of money available of applications for staff to review. I mean, talk about overnight overwhelmed instantly of just having to try to sort through all of this. It's all of this is extra. I mean, we recognize that every time we talk about new dollars or increased dollars. They don't all of a sudden get 15 new staff to help them. It falls on their plate, and they all have to work long and hard to get some of this out. So the advisory definitely acknowledges that with all the staff who are here present, and those who aren't here, who are upstairs working, because they can't even afford to come downstairs. They're like, no, I got too much on my plate. But I do think it's remarkable, and I want to personally thank you. And as the advisory, I want to thank you. I also, just before we go on to our next presentation, I just really appreciate the number of Department of Ed staff who are presenting and being able to show the expertise of all of the different staff. As you know, historically, we had 1 or 2, and now we have a team. And so it's great to see the faces of the team, Kindred and Emily and all those who are here. I appreciate that the workload and the presentations are being shared. It's great to see. So thank you for doing that, Michael. I know we called up some CDE staff, and they sat back down because they were standing in the back for so long as we all talked. So I apologize.
As the Region 3, I just
want to say thank you to the Region 3 team, which will be introduced here in just a moment, for taking the initiative to recognize that the advisory committee would greatly benefit by having a presentation by an LEA and program providers and a regional team to actually get a taste of what we're talking about when we talk about the system of support for expanded learning and the Region 3 team. So welcome, Region 3 team.
Olivia, were you asking a question? One moment, please.
I had a follow-up to, Julie's question.
Sorry, that was Emily, that was you? I thought that was Olivia. Okay, so Emily, you had a question first?
Julie's question on the 21st supplemental amount of sites that we funded, it was 909.
Thanks, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Emily. I actually had it for next month's agenda, but now you've already answered, so thank you. So welcome, Region 3. You're on.
We're good? Okay. Good morning. I'm Jen Taylor with the department here, Expanded Learning Division, and also support the system of support as well as Region 3. I'll introduce my team members.
Thank you. My name is Paul Simpson-Jones. I'm the fiscal analyst covering Region 3 and Region 9.
My name is Rahela Atabaki. I am the coordinator for Sacramento County Office of Education, Expanded Learning Division.
So I know the last meeting we actually presented to you, my colleagues presented to you on the STEAM hubs in the work. And so we were talking about the regions, and I was like, I'll add the map for the next meeting so you can see what the system of support, what it looks like, what it includes. And so the system of support, just a little bit of background for those even online too, includes 16 county offices of education, one being Sacramento County with Region 3. As well as CAN, ASAP Connect, and then the STEAM hubs work. So we wanted to kind of introduce a little bit around Region 3, what this includes, what a team includes, what it composed of is among the team, as well as we're going to introduce an LEA as well for the spotlight presentation. So you'll see this is a visual map. Oh, if we could go back one more. So these are the 16 county offices of education that are funded within the system of support. Many of you've probably already been in contact with them or, have met them before. And so they are there. As far as the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about Region 3, highlight Region 3. So you can see Region 3 includes Sacramento County and the 9 surrounding counties. We're really excited to bring Jason Doyle today from Grass Valley. He's from Nevada County, so it's a little bit about an hour away. So he drove today in Sacramento traffic. We appreciate him. So to represent Nevada in a rural program and also a program that had ACES funding and then received ELOP. So explaining his journey to a comprehensive program. As well as staffing. That has been the highlight today, even with Jeff with the California After School Network, highlighting around staffing and challenges around that. So perfect timing to kind of have that conversation. But a little bit of background around Region 3. You can see with ACES in 21st, the number of LEAs in schools, and then down below in the orange box there, you'll see the expansion with ELOP, how many LEAs we've increased with, as far as ELOP, as well as charter and school districts. So this includes the entire Region 3 area, all the way up to the Sierra and Alpine and bordering Nevada, which it's very diverse region. I mean, Alpine, they actually sometimes have to snowshoe to their expanded learning program. They bought the kids snowshoes. So you can see it can vary within one region how that can look like. Even in El Dorado County, the school safety plans include bears, because there are quite a few bears. So just things that are different depending on whatever county you're within. So if we could go to the next slide. This is our Region 3 team. So you've met Paul Simpson-Jones, fiscal analyst, as well as Rahale from Sacramento County. And so we provide a variety of supports. Within our system of support, there are 3 types of technical assistance, one being critical support, which is for those that are at risk of losing funding, grant reductions, things like that, targeted around a specific target area, whether it be like common themes like support for site coordinators, and then universal for everybody, right? Program requirements, quality standards, all of the supports that everybody should receive. And so I'll just invite Rahale if you want to talk a little bit about what Region 3 supports. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in Region 3, we basically we're that system of support, and that I think Mark always says we're that tertiary first concierge, for LEAs to come to us for any needs that they might have. So we divided the region, the 10 counties. I provide support to Nevada County, El Dorado County, Alpine County, and Placer counties, which has been a really big eye-opening experience for me because I worked in West Sac forever, and getting into the rural areas has been really interesting to see the needs of counties that are not similar to us here in Sacramento. But we usually provide, go in, do site visits, see the program, learn from them. We also give feedback. We have staff trainings that we offer, any kind of training that they want, from TKK support all the way up to high school support, bringing in outside speakers that could help. Basically any kind of needs that the district might want. We also have office hours. We help with paperwork. If they're doing any kind of applications, they can come to us. Those who missed those 15 probably didn't. Some of them didn't come to us because we could have helped them. So we are basically there as a support system. I try to make sure that they understand I'm not here to get you. I'm not writing you up. I'm not reporting to anybody. We are really, truly a system of support and trying to make the programs better for our students.
And so we don't want to take too much of Jason's time. We want to hear from Jason, but just wanted to open it up and kind of set that context of, how it translates from the system of support to a region and now to an LEA within that region. And so I think we can move to the next slide. And you can see on this map where Grass Valley is located as far as in proximity to kind of Sacramento area. And then I think the next 2 slides over. All right, so I'd like to bring up Jason.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. It's both an honor and a privilege to be here and represent my school district, the Grass Valley School District, and also just speak on behalf of Expanded Learning. My name is Jason Doyle. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning and Child Development for the Grass Valley School District. I oversee and manage the ELOP and ACES programs in our district. I also oversee the year-round child development care program that we call CCTR. I'm also the director of our state preschool and Head Start preschool programs for the district. I have 28 and a half years of experience in the education industry, with 25 of those years coming from positions that are between the bells, as they say. I've been a classroom teacher, I've been an instructional coach, teacher on special assignment, and I've been a middle school administrator. As an educator, my goal has always been to impact the lives of as many students and families as possible. 3.5 years ago, I had the opportunity to leave the school day arena and the city life environment and take a position in the Grass Valley School District as a district office administrator that focused on supporting families and students from a child development and social service perspective. It has turned into one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my entire career. Over the last 3.5 years, I've been fortunate to play a role in providing enriching learning experiences for numerous Grass Valley School District students, also supporting their families, their parents with daily provided care and social service resources when needed. In addition, it's been wonderful to help local Grass Valley businesses and organizations flourish and rebound due to our partnerships with ELOP. Next slide, please. Am I doing that? There we go. So I'm here today to spotlight the ELOP ACES programs that I manage in the rural town of Grass Valley, and more so highlight and demonstrate how we aim to implement a single comprehensive program between both ACES and ELOP funding streams. First, let me give some background about Grass Valley and paint a clearer picture of the rural makeup. Grass Valley is located about 55 miles from Sacramento. It's about 25 miles due north of Auburn on Interstate 80. Grass Valley is at about 2,400 feet elevation, located in the Sierra Nevada foothills. The population of Grass Valley is approximately 14,000 residents. Grass Valley is known for its gold rush roots. The gold country nostalgia and Victorian era charm can be felt all around town. The Grass Valley, Southern Nevada County area has 9 individual rural school districts. There is no unified school district system in Grass Valley or in Nevada County. My district, called the Grass Valley School District, is the largest among the 9. Grass Valley School District has a total student population of about 1,500 students across 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 TK through 8th grade charter school. The Grass Valley School District has an unduplicated pupil percentage estimated at about 75%, which excludes our charter school, which puts us in tier 1 for ELOP funding. We run 3 ACES programs on 3 school campuses with approximately 200 total students, which is a little less than 25% of our total student enrollment for the district, minus the charter school. Those of us know that charter schools are their own LEAs, and so they run their own ELOP program. But interesting that nearly 25% of our student population is in our after-school programs. It's very important. Next slide, please. So trying to create one comprehensive program that simultaneously shares students from multiple after-school programs doesn't come without its challenges. Staying organized, paying attention to detail, maintaining supervision and safety of students, and most of all, making sure that all students and families have access to enrichment activities takes a lot of collaboration and teamwork. Our biggest effort at times is orchestrating how to move students back and forth from our ACES programs to our expanded learning opportunities so that parents can still receive the full benefits of their registered ACES program. To help set us up for success in Grass Valley, our ACES and ELOP program focuses on the following key areas: communication, staffing, and space. The sheer amount of communication that takes place to manage and implement a successful ACES and ELOP program is incredible. As I mentioned earlier, 28 and a half years of experience in various roles, and the amount of communication in my role now doubles, if not triples, what I've done before. So it's a lot of communication. Managing that communication quickly became a challenge for me in my role. We have learned firsthand that poor communication procedures or lack thereof can practically ruin your program. Some things we have done to help with communication include I made the decision to hire 2 classified personnel to help with the communication. One is our ELOP program technician, and this person actually is a former ACES site supervisor. So a lot of my communication that's fluid, going back and forth, is handled by that person. I also, halfway through last year, I made the decision to purchase an ELOP student information system platform called 6 Crickets. And when I purchased 6 Crickets and started going through their professional development, I recognized that I don't have the bandwidth to manage the communication that comes from the offerings and then the registrations and all of that. So I hired an ELOP data and communication specialist. It's someone who has a lot of experience with educational platforms. A lot of us use Aries as our main student information system and ParentSquare. And so this person handles that.
I saw your PowerPoint. I kept saying he hired 6 crickets. What's a cricket? I leaned over and asked Tony.
ELOP funding to.
I don't know what a cricket is.
I didn't.
It's a platform. I'm with you now.
Yeah. In addition, in terms of communication, we're really big on our frequent reminders. Every ELOP activity that we run on the following day, the night before, we send out group emails to every single ELOP activity so that every parent, we try to think like parents and we have our own kids, and getting a reminder at 5:30 at night is always helpful to let them know your child has hip hop tomorrow, or your child has yoga or whatever. And lastly, we have a master ELOP programming sheet. It's just a Google sheet, and it has all of our current ELOP offerings, our rosters, student contact information, and that is shared with school day. We've learned that you have to include school day. If you don't include the secretaries, you don't include the instructional aides, the classroom teachers, the site principals, you're going to run into problems. So we have one master programming sheet. So that way, if the front office of a school gets a phone call a minute after dismissal, they have access to a document that could probably handle the question. For staffing, hiring and locating quality staff in a rural community can be tougher than in other settings. It was nice to hear Jeff speak this morning and kind of, touch upon hiring and just the workforce. Being creative with staffing is very important to consider when you're in a rural community. First thing we noticed is that expecting our ACES staff to also perform roles with ELOP supervision, escorting ELOP students to activities, doing ELOP snack delivery, taking ELOP attendance, it causes a lot of conflicts with our normal ACES job responsibilities. So to remedy that issue, I sought approval of our district's Board of Trustees to create a new ELOP classified teacher position that is now on our district pay scale. That now gives me flexibility to hire my own classified staff on an as-needed basis. To run a single comprehensive ELOP program, we've learned that extra staffing is critically needed to supervise students, escort students back to programs, pick them up after programs, and then return them back to their ACES program. This in itself helps keep that single comprehensive program. Another strategy we practice is to build connections and relationships with our instructional aid staff from the school day on the school sites. Traditional hiring practices to recruit applicants for limited evening or morning hours is a challenge in rural areas. We have found that many school day instructional aid classified staff are looking for extra hours, not looking for an 8-hour shift, but 1 or 2 extra hours is what we need. So that's worked out well. Oftentimes, what I will do is I'll send out a whole district email just to the classified staff in the district, asking for paid volunteers and just trying to recruit that way. Lastly, another strategy that I use is just to find partners and vendors that provide their own staff. That's been a challenge. Hiring vendors who want to come in and train your staff has been a challenge. Finding vendors who have their own qualified staff has been more beneficial. You just have to make sure you vet their staff, go through the proper insurance guidelines and fingerprinting and all of that. And then finally, we have the challenge of getting space. Possibly the biggest challenge with offering expanded learning opportunities is finding enough space to accommodate enrichment activities. One way we get space is to create expanded learning opportunities that are led by our certificated teachers from the school day. Classrooms are sacred to teachers. They're not really usually willing to give up their space. I was a classroom teacher, so I get it. But if you employ them and give them roles or you seek them out to provide enrichment, it becomes a win-win situation. We get a really qualified person providing instruction and we get a classroom space. Currently in Grass Valley School District, we have a board-approved pay scale for our certificated teachers that work after school. We provide them with an hourly wage that honors their college degrees and their credentials, and also their experience with instruction and classroom management. We have quite a few certificated teachers that are providing expanded learning opportunities. We have a mountain bike club, acoustic guitar, musical theater, pottery, academic tutoring, digital media, and various culinary classes. Another strategy to plan expanded learning opportunities. Another strategy is to plan your expanded learning seasonally. I ran into a couple of problems with trying to run an outdoor flag football program that then ran into snow time. And so you want to utilize your outdoor spaces and think seasonally when you're bringing in programs. And then last, we look.
Seasons.
We do. Yeah, I know.
We don't. So
yeah,
it's
spring is like a week.
Yeah, spring is a week.
I know. I'm from Elk Grove in Sac County, grew up in.
You have like the mud season,
we have fires, we have snow, yeah, everything. Last, I look for vendors that offer their own space. We have a large ELOP youth arts program with a local business in town called Center for the Arts. In fall, winter, and spring, we have over 100 of our students each week that attend a variety of arts programs at their facility, which has multiple studio spaces indoors. They provide aerial silk acrobatics, acting and improv classes, creative ballet, tumbling and tricks for our TK kids, musical theater, hip hop, therapeutic drawing, and a few more. Last slide, please. So here's a visual of the different kinds of ELOP offerings that go out to all our families and students in the Grass Valley School District. Instructors are made up of vendor partnerships, our own certificated teachers, and then those that are hired under the ELOP teacher classified position that I mentioned a few minutes ago. I'll leave this up, and if anybody has any questions about these programs or anything else that I presented today, I'm open for questions. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today and share the wonderful things we're doing in rural Grass Valley. And also thank you for giving me the platform to speak about the greatness of having expanded learning opportunities for students and families. Thank you.
Jason, thank you so much. You know, we as an advisory, and you hear it from the department, a braided, comprehensive, expanded learning program, and you have just literally demonstrated it before our eyes. It's not theory, it's practice. And so, I heard you clearly that, you know, coming from many different positions, this communication is probably the hardest because there's so many different interested stakeholders and uninterested stakeholders that you are trying to bring into the fold. And so I applaud what you've done because it is what we talk about, but to be able to see it in real time and to know that you are able to overcome those challenges. I love your creativity with space. I love your creativity of incentivizing the use of classrooms with that classroom teacher and not just say we want to use your class, but hey, how do we engage you in the partnership? So, I mean, those elements are just tricks that you've learned that can be replicated, right? That someone saying, well, gosh, I keep asking the classroom teachers and they keep saying, no, you can't come in. Well, you just gave them a strategy of how to get them there. You know, literally walking down your city streets, your community streets and saying, what's that building? What's inside of it? How can we use it? I mean, so those are just such creative ways. I applaud what you brought to us today. I open it up. Fred, do you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment. Personally, I just want to thank Jason for coming down from Grass Valley, fresh off a trip from Hawaii, and as well as the Region 3 team for putting this together. Jen specifically, as well as Riley and Corey and Mark, who's not here. And I don't want to be amiss of the young lady in the back. I'm not exactly sure who that is, but we welcome you as well. I assume you with them. You right on. Thanks for coming. And thanks for putting this together. This is something that we're looking to do for our April meeting as well, having some sort of LEA spotlight. So hopefully get someone else close to come in and represent their LEA. But you're the first one out that you did a great job for us. Appreciate it.
Well, you have set the stage with big shoes to fill, trust me. So thank you. Other members of the committee have questions? Yes, Chris.
Thanks for being here. One big thing that comes up a lot throughout the field is quality staff. And you mentioned those certificated teachers. And I'm sure in your extensive background, you've seen how to pay entry level and also how to budget for certificated teachers. Can you tell me the pros and cons of what you've dealt with financially to make sure that that works effectively?
Yeah, I would say, the cons would be, having an uneven pay scale. If you have, you're hiring classified staff or a high school student who's coming in to work for you versus a certificated teacher. In most cases, it's pretty understood. If you have a classroom teacher and you see what they do during the day, they just have the ability. They're a little bit more skilled at running a classroom, and most of the classified staff or high schoolers I bring in, they get it. I really have not ran into too many problems with it. It is a challenge to get certificated teachers also, no matter how handsome I want to pay them. I was a school teacher for almost 20 years, and I know when 3:30 hits, you're wiped out, and trying to put in even an hour more is tough. So I don't put a lot of pressure on the certificated staff. I kind of just sprinkle it in. I circle back, every few months and just really work on the connections and the relationships I have with those people. And that's the other thing about being in rural. If you shout it out from the mountains and you get 55 teachers that want to, you can't do that anyways. You only need a handful here and a handful there. So I think the balance has been great. I haven't really had too many. My biggest challenge has been just recruiting and getting them on board. This is my 4th year, so I will tell you the first 2 years, it was crickets. And just people are like, who is this guy? He's from the city. He's a flatlander. He doesn't get it. And I take it, so that's fine. But yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Tiffany?
Hey, everybody. I apologize for being late. Traffic fog from the Bay. Thank you. Because I think what you also showed was the board approved kind of additional positions, right? The classified teacher positions. I don't think people necessarily think outside of the boxes that they have. So you being able to acknowledge that the first 2 years, yeah, it is relationship. It is people believing that the program that you're bringing could benefit from their expertise, right? And so that's something that I think is important for us to just kind of keep pushing out, right? That you really had to think a little differently about things. And the fact that when you did, the board was like, yeah, we can do that. We can think differently about that. So I thought that was really incredible. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. The creative ideas really come out of failures. You try and you get, it doesn't work. And then you just go, gosh, what can I do? Creating that position really came out of, I was hiring people under our instructional aid position with the district, which had a whole fiscal mess tied to it. And so I'm like, well, then what can I do? I can't hire, and I can't pull from the general fund. So somehow, someday it just clicked. I thought, can I get my own position so I can hire someone for just 2 hours on Mondays or every Tuesday, Thursday, and then they can come in and support the ACES program. And my ACES staff finally just were like, hey, we can't do this. We have 20 in our ratio. We're busy. We have a daily schedule. We don't have room to break off. So it's been learning from mistakes and building relationships, like you said. Thank you.
Everybody, that's CQI in action. Jeff Davis, I know you hear me somewhere.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Tony?
Just a question. Did any of these amazing groups who are you're working with, did any of them come to you as opposed to you going to them? And what does that process look like?
Great question. I moved to Grass Valley 3.5 years ago. I grew up in Stockton, spent 25 years there, and then I worked in Twin Rivers Unified School District and in the Del Paso Heights Grant Network for 25 years there also. So when I got to Grass Valley, I'd only been to Grass Valley probably 2 times in my entire life. So thankfully, I had a few things that were handed off to me and told, hey, go call these people, Music in the Mountains, Center for the Arts, reach out to them. A lot of the other ones, I get emails. We probably all get 15 to 20 emails today from sales reps. Everybody's on the ELOP train, wanting to offer this, that, and the other. So some of it's been slid my way and said, hey, make a phone call. Center for the Arts is great because when I met them 3.5 years ago, they were struggling. And their youth arts coordinator, Athena Arano, just said, can you help us out? Like our building is about to go under. And we started with sending 25 kids to the Center for the Arts in a whole year. And like I mentioned earlier, we now have over 100 kids each week that are going the whole year. California Venture Camps, I met matter of fact, I think I was at the CAN conference down in Long Beach. I think Michael was a keynote speaker there. And then Kevin Cry, who's the owner of California Venture Camps, he was also a keynote speaker. And so I met him there, made the phone call, and we've been doing business with them for 3 years, and it's tremendous. So, and I've hit the streets. I've had to meet people and build connections and have people say, hey, try this, try that. But it's a little bit of both. It's relying on the locals, but it's also pounding the pavement. Yep.
Does that mean in 25 years you'll be considered a local?
That's funny too, because the other day I was like, do I feel like a local yet? Like when does that happen? But don't feel it yet, but I'm sure it'll come.
Cindy?
I think you look like a local though, so that's good.
Actually blue sky up in Grass Valley. So you come down the mountain, it's like, what's going on? So it's cold, but it's blue sky.
I loved the reference to your student assistants, high school students, because I'm from Red Bluff, if you know where that is. And we have relied heavily on high school students to grow our own staff, and it's been beautiful. We have 15 working in our programs right now who have graduated from high school and taken the necessary paraprofessional requirement test. But something else that we're finding is that these kids are on the soccer team, they're in FFA, they're all these things. So we're able to partner with the 3 high schools that we have in some areas to come in. And this summer we're actually having one of the high schools run some camps for our additional 30 days. So I love that you mentioned that you have high school students also.
Well, and right, we're in the kid business. And if you can have young adults come back and provide service, that's what we want. That's what we're trying to do. And a lot of I'm fortunate, I work with the Region 3 team. Leo is from the Nevada County Grass Valley area. She's very familiar with Nevada Union and Bear River and Godoti and the high schools up there. We're actually in the process of piloting the STEAM project to use the high schoolers to come down for our middle school. And that's with the help of the whole Region 3 team. But yes, involving the high schoolers is important. That's the CTE work that's given them a pathway for their future.
And we're also finding, I asked them in their interview, did you go to our program? oh yes, I had Miss so-and-so, and if I can, I put them there.
Yep.
And they feel like they own it, and then they want to stay.
Yeah, it's neat. I have a couple high schoolers in our middle school, and they walk around. The teachers are like, "Hello, what are you doing here?" He's like, "I work here." They're like, "You work here?" So yeah, very neat. Okay. Any other questions? Michael?
I'd like to document this first time we've had an LEA here, and invite Region 3 and Jason to come up and stand by the chair, and for the advisory committee to gather around, and let's get a picture.
Sounds great.
Look at you, Bugs, inspiring.
Am I going here or?
Region, act like you like each other.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Region 3, Jason and the team. We really appreciate everything that you brought to us together. So thank you for joining us and for literally, as I said before, showing us what a blended and braided program actually looks like in real time. So thank you very much. So I'm actually going to continue on our agenda. This is an opportunity for an open discussion of emerging issues and opportunities that your districts, your regions are facing. These are things that we can have asked for agendized to come back. I do want to make a note that we did ask at the last meeting for some data analysis going back to 16, 17 of unspent funds. Unfortunately, Josh Brady could not join us today, but that will be at our April meeting. So it will be on the agenda for April meeting. They just needed some time to put all that data together. So we will have it for our April meeting. I do also want to make note for the minutes that Tiffany Gibson is joined us and that she is present also. So, but I'd like to open it up to members for any emerging issues or opportunities that they'd like to share. And I'm going to turn to Brad first. Brad has this thing where he goes like this, and I know he's going to talk.
Sorry. I'm hesitant to do this because it creates more work for other folks. I'm happy to do the work, but I need the data to do the work. I'm curious if we could take the unspent funds document that was presented last time and have it run as a percentage of the total revenue that was in that area. I mean, I ran the numbers, like the assets grant at 4.6 million unspent of the 74 millions, like just under 5%. Where the 21st century middle and elementary is running at like 13% of the money is returned, because I have those numbers. I don't have all the other data to be able to do that. Can I either get the data and I'll run it for everybody and share it out, or can the CDE run it for us as percentages, not just raw dollars?
Yes, the CDE team can get that percentage for you in the April meeting.
Thanks.
And that will go with the other trend data that we had asked for, so we can look at that through a kind of a different lens, a different layer, I should say, that we could see. So other concerns or issues? I know at the last meeting, we talked at length about the concern for immigration coming on campus. As we had talked, several assembly bills and Senate bills passed that provided guidance to school districts. The Department of Ed has released a toolkit for school districts. All school districts are required to have a school safety plan. We are encouraging ELOP, ACES, 21st Century Assets to make sure they're part of that plan, that we're across the state, making sure that whether it's run by the school district or a community-based organization, that they know what the laws and the rules are, and that they know what the district policies are, so we can make sure youth and families are protected. I've been seeing a lot of articles recently where high school students are driving young kids to school to make sure that they get there safely, that they're not walking unattended. So there's a lot of examples coming out all across the country of other students stepping in to help support younger students. Other things that we have concerns for, any other emerging issues or trends someone would like to bring up? I hear none. Brad?
Sure, I'm going to go back to the older youth because there's a lot of chatter in the space between these meetings that's happening around older youth, and I'm maybe putting it out as urgency to get a little bit of more information about what might be being considered for older youth before we get into the letter of intent to apply for the next cohort of assets, which I believe will be coming out in May or so. We should see that LOI have to be signed, and then we'll all be writing in October. And the question is if there's going to be something else that's happening for older youth that will affect the field's position on what they apply for in terms of assets for the next cohort, I believe cohort 16. So curious on that piece. Specifically, a lot of the talk has been around the rate the rate for the assets grant has gone from $10 to $10.18, less than 2% increase, while the high school side went from $7 to $10.18, a 45% increase over the same amount of time. And when we look at the high school sides, there's no opportunity for supplemental 21st century because the assets grant's not written that way. I understand that, but we're talking about a dollar amount for 365 days as opposed to a dollar amount for 180 days. So we've got a rate, we've got a number of days that supports, and then we also have an issue around the percentage of students at a school at a traditional assets grant being 139 students for the 180 days, when your high schools are going to be thousands of students, whereas in an elementary or middle school, you're talking about 111 students out of maybe 400. So those pieces of data are what's being looked at, and I'm hoping we can have this conversation before we get to the assets application coming up this fall.
So Brad, I know you talked about there's conversations outside of this room. Is there a potential presentation that could come to our April meeting to talk about? I know there's a lot of, side conversations, different organizations. Is there something that could be presented to have a better understanding of both the basic realities of funding but then overlaid with the need and what the ask is?
There are definitely groups meeting with different intermediaries, including like CAN had an older youth group that was meeting for a little while. So let me come back to the committee with an advisory with some ideas about who that might be, to see who the best person to present it in the most succinct way would be.
Yeah. And I guess what I would like, Brad, is we have almost like a minute conversation about it, right? At each meeting, we talk older youth, but we don't have what we had here with Region 3, where we could actually see the landscape. And it might help to be able to see the landscape, to be able to say, now I have a better understanding of what the need is, what the deficit is, and then what could be done about this. Because right now it seems very small, and yet it's a big topic. And so I'm wondering if we could actually agendize it and have a presentation on what the need is for older youth, and not just through the funding lens, but just the scope of what's out there.
I mean, I'm a yes, and I've, as you can tell from the way I talk about it, I've got a lot of the data in my head, and there's a bunch of us that are working on it, and we've got it in reports all over the place that have been pulled together, from Wallace's work to CAN's work to PCY's work over the years to the different reports. So I would be happy to be a support to whatever group is the right group to do that presentation. I don't think it can be me to flip upside to the other side of the dais.
Right. Okay, but if you can communicate with me of who that could be, we could work maybe before April or one of the next meetings to get that on the agenda. Okay.
And we can support, yeah. So because there's CA3 is having some conversations, right? That's PCY led. So there's, like you said, there's several different groups. And I think that what we probably can and work with the department on is not only what the current state is funding, but then it's also structurally what's the need, where do we feel like there's opportunity. So I do believe that we could probably put together something that allows for a more comprehensive conversation, because I do believe that's part of the challenge too, is that there's so many expectations of what current policy can do or where it can be stretched. I think there's opportunities where it could be looked at differently, and then how can we approach that? So I do believe there's space for a conversation. And I'm going to suggest that even if we bring it here, it may actually end up being more of like an ad hoc too, where there's a lot more, when we bring people here, there's going to be more data, I think, that's elevated that we need to have the kind of discussion. But yeah, we could definitely work together to put, I'm going to come to you and then we'll figure out something. Okay.
Michael?
So having been testifying before Senator Laird and the Senate Budget Education Committee, and having been lectured firmly on the use of acronyms, I would ask us to be less acronym prone. CAN stands for California After School Network. PCY stands for the Partnership for Children and Youth. CA3 stands for the California After School Advocacy Alliance. Did I miss any? Public?
And CDE stands for the California Department of Education.
So just let's be mindful, since now these are being broadcast and recorded, would be important to have that context.
Michael, when I realized I could speak an entire paragraph without using a single word, and just use acronyms as I develop an RFP for, I could just do the whole thing. And I was like, I got very good at it, but I appreciate that. Thank you for reminding us. Yes, for an LEA to do a EXLP. Yeah, I could do the whole thing. So one of the things that we did talk about at the last meeting was when we were talking about the current RFAs, and we talked about the unspent funds from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. We went through the list. And I just heard that we've asked for those to also be run now by percentages of the total available, just not the raw number. So we'll add that to that for our April meeting. In our April meeting, we might also have a discussion on older use. So that might also be on our agenda. I do ask if there's any public comment before we end this. Fred?
Hi, folks. I have a comment first, though. This is Diane.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to echo the opportunity to have the older youth conversation on the next agenda, and make sure that we're including middle school in that conversation, because of the gap in funding of ELOP dollars and the real importance, I think, of expanding that resource to that specific population. So however I can support that, or whatever is needed for that, I would want to make sure that this body has the opportunity to talk to the people we need to speak with, and see if there's a way that we can also echo the support of this group for additional funding for middle school youth as well.
Thank you. Julie?
One other question. Is it when will it be possible for us to see trends in audit findings, since this was the first cycle, right?
We've actually been doing analysis on the audit findings, and have actually been working with legislative staff in terms of a informal informational hearing on audit findings for ELOP. And I'd be happy to put that on the agenda for the next advisory committee.
Thank you.
Most of the audit findings tend to be number of days program is operated, number of hours the program is open, staff ratios. And I can tell you what we discussed with legislative staff and Department of Finance staff, the governor's administration, is that the number of findings, while it was the largest number of findings of any element of K-12 education from the state controller's office, the way the program is structured, audit findings are the audit procedure is less forgiving than in the K-12 educational system. Let me give you an example. In the K-12 educational system, if a teacher has an emergency and a substitute is not available, my daughter would be moved into another classroom and one teacher would cover both classrooms for a day or two until the situation could be resolved. That's not an audit finding for a school district. If an auditor would show up at an ELOP program and there were 21 kids with one adult instead of 20, that would be an audit finding. And that LEA goes on the record as having received an audit finding, which is not differentiated from being out of ratio for one day or not running the program at all. Both LEAs get one audit finding. Let's say, as some of my educational program consultants and analysts would share with me when they would be out in the field, this small rural LEA didn't run the ELOP program for the first 2 years, but they pulled it together in the third year. And for the first time, that community had a summer program for kids. They couldn't run it for 30 days, but they ran it for 25. Guess what? Audit finding. And so it was helpful for the legislative staff to understand those dynamics, and yet that is still the way the audit structure is set up. So right now, any LEA that it did receive an audit finding for ELOP is now on a list for our system of support to reach out to and offer support in any way possible to help them avoid an audit in the future. But I just want to say the number of audit findings does not paint the picture of what transformative work is happening for kids and families.
Well, and the converse of that is the workload on staff here because of that stringent, requirements and the audit findings for ELLP. It adds again more work to the staff where in the traditional day it wouldn't have been a finding and they wouldn't have had to reach out and say, how can we help you? How can we support you? So it adds more workload back on the backside as that, because it's just so strict. So Olivia, did you have any comments?
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So on our agenda for next time, we're going to have those unspent funds, both in the raw numbers as well as the percent of the total available. We'll have a discussion on older youth, and Brad and Tiffany will work together to where we can figure out what that will look like and who is best to do that. And then, Michael, if you're comfortable, we'll also see those trends on the audit findings at our next agenda, which our next meeting will be April 21st. I want to thank our public. We had over 150 people join us throughout the morning, listening in and watching us this morning. So thank you for joining us across the state. I want to again put a shout out to Region 3. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presentation and demonstrating what a braided and blended program can look like in real time. And I also want to thank all the California Department of Education staff for being part of the team and for being here with us this morning and making it happen. Mr. Buggs, you have something to say? I had asked if we had any public comment. Okay, sorry, you didn't answer. So
Yeah, we have two questions for the Q&A. The first one says, are there any other ways we can expose more of what programs are doing across the state? I think this is amazing to hear from the field. We can even offer a virtual presentation.
Tune in to the fireside chats produced by the California After School Network and CDE, because we regularly host presentations like we had today. And I already asked Jason if I told him we'd be having him on a fireside chat. So those fireside chats can be found on the California After School Network website. And just before the first of the year, we featured most of the people who received Lights On After School Awards and their programs, it was very inspiring.
That's wonderful. And they're archived, so you could hear back from others. Are they monthly or quarterly?
They're when we do them.
Okay, it's that schedule, when we do them.
I mean, this started actually just trivia when Tiffany Gibson came up to me right during the middle of the pandemic and said, people need to hear your voice. And so we figured out how to do it. And back then they were weekly because that was the need. We had a little bit of a break last year for several months, but we just did one last week and at least monthly, if not more.
All right, wonderful.
And just adding office hours. It's a great space to hear people tell the stories of their wins, very informally, but it's also a really great place to hear the really good work that's happening.
You want to expand on that a little bit? What is office hours?
Sure, it's another partnership with the department where we use it to share kind of in real time things that's happening, that the policy implications, information from the department, but it really is exactly what it says. It's a space where the department with CAN kind of holds space, and it's the entire system of support that's on the call to hear what are challenges coming up for folks. And then we always end the space with what is going well for you. And it's incredible to see how many people literally exchange information in the chat so that they can, they don't need us. They call each other, they share resources. So it's a really great strategy. And there's links all over CAN's website.
So if you look at the California After School Network website, you'll be able to look at both the archive fireside chats as well as any fireside chat that's coming up, as well as look at the links for
the office hours. The schedule is on there. Yep.
For office hours.
And the office hours features a presentation at the start from the Expanded Learning Division staff, where you'll get updates similar to what you get at the advisory committee. And then policy updates, as Tiffany said, and then just general questions. We do not record office hours on purpose because we want people to feel free that they can ask any question they want and not have it be part of a public record.
Wonderful. Kendra, next question.
The next question asks, could LEAs that service high school students participate in a Zoom session before April that service high school? Maybe LEAs can offer some insight.
I think I would turn back to Tiffany and California After School Network to see if they can reach out to figure out how that would happen.
Yes.
We'll work on that.
I'm going to work on it because the thing is we can open it and then it'll be interesting to see how we get information targeted to that group of folks to just convene. But CAN team, yes.
California After School Network team, yes. Anything else for the good of the order? I appreciate our staff. Kindred, you were going to say
Yeah,
something?
we still have public comment, one more.
Okay, sorry, you said 2. Now you're going 3 on me.
Mark, you can speak.
Mark, you're unmuted. You can talk.
Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes.
Perfect. That's on me. I joined. I raised my hand late there, so I'll take that one. Hey, I hear. First of all, thank you for all you're doing. This field really appreciates the hard work and the consistency around this. 2 quick things. First, I think immigration is a topic that is really starting to heighten, and we need to be prepared for that as a collective. So I'd love to figure out a way to agendize that or talk through best practices as the action picks up here locally. The other is I just want to reiterate, and at the risk of preaching to the choir here, sometimes it's not necessarily a funding issue that we're experiencing. I think there's a lot of cash and resources flowing through our sector. Sometimes it's an access to that funding issue for us CBOs. And so as we look at things like minimum wage and the quality of services that we're trying to render, how do we continue to access those dollars that are meant for the students and the families? So that's really something I'd love to continue to look at ways that CBOs are able to do that in partnership. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Mark. Other questions or concern? I want to thank everyone for participating today, those online and those present. And our next meeting is April 21st at 10 a.m. here at CDE, and we will be virtual again. So thank you for participating, and the meeting is adjourned.